Is this show a Wonder Man, or is it really a slumber man? Hello everyone, and welcome to the Illuminati Takeover of the Sacred Rewatch. Today we are going to be discussing the first 3 episodes of WonderMan, and I know what you're saying. Hey, they didn't drop just 3 episodes, they dropped the whole dang show. Calm down, we gotta take our time, get through this. So, we're just discussing the first 3 episodes. So if you haven't reached the end of the show, you've just seen parts of it up to this point, and you want to see something with no spoilers for the end, this is where we're going to be getting into it. It also allows us to get into some more in-depth discussion, focusing on certain episodes instead of trying to fit the whole show into one discussion. So I'm joined here by Wyatt, a man of many titles, but I won't give him one because he's not one thing. He's an all-around great person.
Good evening, everyone. How are we doing tonight?
We're doing amazing! Wow! That's so cool to hear, guys. So let's just jump straight into it. What kind of vibe were you getting when you first started watching WonderMan? Was it, oh man, I gotta watch this and get on the grind, or was it, finally this show's out that I'm looking forward to?
Well, WonderMan was weird because I talked about it a little bit in the video we had come out yesterday about our pre-expectations. But this was a show that I was not excited for at all, just because, we didn't really hear anything about it for the longest time. And then once it went out to all the critics and all the reviews started coming out, it was getting really, really, really good reviews. So I became really excited for it. So going into it, I was pretty excited to give these first 3 episodes a start yesterday when I turned them on.
Sweet. It's awesome to hear. I kind of had a similar experience, except I kind of had a turning point when that first Disney Plus TV promo came out. That had about 10, 15 seconds of it, maybe. Because for the longest time we had the title WonderMan, but I didn't really know who it was, what it was. And the second this actually kind of started, like, the promo, we got that teaser, then it was quiet for a long time after that. But once we got the teaser, I was like, oh, this is about movies and stuff. So I got really excited for it.
I actually, the teaser, talking about the teaser where it first kind of debuted, the kind of like that WonderMan shot with kind of like the WonderMan font and the yellow. Once I kind of saw the teasers, and it kind of started painting the idea that it was going to be kind of a more different superhero show and more of a different Marvel show, which is especially what I saw in a lot of the reviews too. I also got a little more excited for it just because, like we talked about before, especially when it comes to things like Werewolf by Night, or just like anytime Marvel shows have the sort of freedom to kind of be not quote unquote adventurous, because I never really do anything too out there. But anytime Marvel has the opportunity to do something that doesn't necessarily need to fit a certain mold, I'm usually pretty excited. Like Werewolf by Night felt different, and I think it was a pretty good show. So going into this, knowing that it could be somewhat different from your traditional Marvel shows, that gave me a pretty good excitement level too.
I completely agree, and I think that's paid off in the show so far. It doesn't feel like another Marvel show. We don't even really have, so far, a villain. We just have the, is it the Department of Homeland Security? It's not that. Yeah. It's the Department of...
No, Department of Damage Control.
Is that what it's called? Damage Control. That's true. And I think it's just way more interesting like this. I really like that these episodes, agree, especially in retrospect for building up a character, I'm so glad that episodes are leaning more on how much this audition matters. You know what I mean? How much, like, them sneaking around trying to get information out of them. I'm so glad that that is what is taking up these episodes' time, and not, oh, hey, there's a big bad trying to sneak into the film industry and really get you. But speaking of villains, I think we have a very good contester coming in here, because I watched a little Marvel YouTube video posted by the Marvel channel about who is WonderMan. It was something like that. And it discussed that his brother is sometimes a villain-like character for him. So when we got to that 3rd episode, and he broke the table and he was getting to that argument, I was really like, maybe they are setting
Uh-huh.
that up. But there's a lot of interesting things I found out in that video. Apparently, like pretty much every character surrounding WonderMan in the comics, at least the ones that they were talking about, is in the MCU in some way. So I thought maybe we might get in something there, because I think Zemo's involved somehow in him getting his powers in some stories, uh, which leads to just characters surrounding Zemo. I think some Captain America references and stuff, but which we did get one in the show too. But yeah, I don't know. I wonder if his brother is going to end up being a kind of villain character. But I don't know how much we'll feature him or if he's just going to be another kind of family character.
Two things that I thought of when you were talking about that we just brought up. The first thing when you mentioned how you like how the show's focusing on the kind of what seems like smaller things to superhero shows and not so much the whole big bad. I'm enjoying that a lot. And I actually think Wonder Man is a really good example of what Marvel and Disney can do when they don't need to focus on a big bad, when they can focus on, real human interactions and human emotions and human relationships. Because these first three episodes are nothing but Simon and I'm blanking on his name all of a sudden. The Mandarin,
Trevor Slattery.
yes, Trevor Slattery. It's all these first two episodes are them interacting with each other and learning about each other and talking to each other, and all the power to both of them as actors. They are doing an amazing job, in my opinion, because these first three
Completely agree.
episodes are based off of their rapport. For this show to work, these two individuals need to bring so much, not just chemistry to each scene, because they do such a good job at not starting off as the best of friends, and not like a antagonistic way. They do a great job at they have to learn about each other, like they go through the whole trying to find a spot to film his audition tape. And while doing that, they both kind of learn about each other's passion for movies that they haven't really found in a lot of people. And I think that brings it together. And there's a great line that Trevor says when he's leaving, and it's something along the lines of acting is not just a job, it's a calling. And that line's great because that line I
Mm-hmm.
think is a good job at showing both what Simon has already talked about in the first episode and what we know Trevor thinks. And I also think that line has a lot of potential what's the word? Foreshadowing going down in a couple episodes for Simon to potentially come into a role of developing his powers. Trevor saying along the lines
Mm-hmm.
like, being an actor is not a job, it's a calling. Could also be the same as in a couple episodes, needing to tell Simon having powers is a calling. It's a calling to go on and do something bigger than yourself. So I also, when that came up, I could see that being a sort of foil for like a line in a future episode.
I completely agree. Um, yeah, I just think the acting is just so good. Like you
Mm-hmm.
really, and I think that along with the editing, the visual style, I think the show has a very unique visual style. Um, just different shots than I would expect from a Marvel show. Um, and I was going to say one more thing is the feeling that we have of the kind of government type team going after him. It reminds
Mm-hmm.
me a lot of one of the best Marvel shows I think we agree on, WandaVision. In those first WandaVision episodes, it wasn't really apparent that there was a villain. I
Uh-huh.
mean, obviously people suspected things. I mean, the show had to go somewhere. We didn't know Agatha was a villain at that point in the story. Obviously, if you looked at the comics, you would kind of know that. But according, you know what I mean? Sometimes comics don't line up with what
Yeah.
they're doing. So we didn't really know what was going on there. We had like red helicopters, things like that. And right now, there's not really anything even being a red helicopter kind of telling us who it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But realistically, I don't think we need one. I think it
That's
could
what I
just
was
be
gonna
him
say.
and the security and the government type team just going in there, and then that can kind of be the ending. I think we'll
You
either
have
get where the public looks on him in a good light after the last episode, and then the security can't really do anything about that. Like he's already a superhero at that point, or what?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But I think the pacing is just going so well right now,
I
like
agreed.
so well, because he could have already been in a suit. He could have already been
Mhm.
in a. You mean?
I
And
mean,
I
by
think the
episode
jumping
3,
around.
we haven't really seen his powers at all outside of museum, and I also like how they're not even he doesn't talk about his powers. His powers are so small so far in the show, you know?
The last thing
They
he cares
haven't
about.
they haven't discussed his powers. They haven't even told you what his powers do. They haven't told you how he got his powers. which not saying how he's gotten his powers. There's a line his mother says, something along the lines of like she doesn't know how he got him. He just one day they were just there. I also that goes back to my strong theory. I
Mutant.
think that Simon's going to be a mutant. Yep, I 100% think he's a mutant. And I don't know if
I
that's
could see
revealed
that.
at the end of the show, but I definitely think he's going to be a mutant. And you'll agree a lot with this with me. I love the kind of just the love they're giving to movies and just Hollywood. Like,
Yeah.
especially with just having your two main characters who are in this Hollywood world being standouts from everyone else they're also interacting with in Hollywood. Like, everyone they would talk to works in the movie industry, but none of them are really showing the same love and appreciation to the art that Simon and Trevor are showing. And a cool detail that really stood out to me, I don't know if you noticed this, in episode 1 when they first meet, they're the only two people who stayed to the very, very end of the credits. Like, when they watch the movie,
Oh,
when the
yeah.
everyone's in the movie, and then, at the end, there's people walking off, and it shows the two of them just kinda watching the credits, which I think was a cool little sign to show how much appreciation the both of them show to stuff like that.
Totally. And Simon the whole show is showing his like movie knowledge. That's really what helps him get
Mhm.
along with Trevor. Is he knows pretty much every project he's ever been in, who else was in the movie, who directed it. Um and I think it's just a really good foundation to kind of get them to like each other. You know what I mean? And we get that scene where Trevor kind of gets rid of the wire that he's wearing
I was about to yeah.
like when they're talking at the end by the car. Um
After that talk
and
he
I think
has with his mom,
it
where
all
his mom
nicely leads to that
tells him
point.
that and his mom has that talk with Trevor where his mom says that when she watching, Simon grow up, she never thought that he was alone because he always had the movies, like, he always had such a love for movies. But she knew that deep down he was alone, which I think is 100% something that Trevor has felt in his life, and they did a great job at setting these
Yeah.
characters up to show so much with, like, their body language and their line delivery that when when they're sitting in that car together and, Trevor decides to get rid of the wire, it very much feels like a very genuine and very earned kind of moment of turning point for Trevor. Like, you know that he never really wanted to do this in the first place, but it doesn't really take away the fact that he has formed a really genuine, what seems like, connection with, Simon, which makes sense for why he'd wanna get rid of that wire. Where you feel like a lot of Marvel shows, they don't lay the groundwork for those real kinda genuine connections between your characters. So it's so exciting to see that, and I think a part of that is the sort of overarching freedom you have with Wonder Man, you know? Like, they really just get to tell a story that happens to take place in the MCU, which I think is a great thing for Marvel. They do great when they get to do that.
Totally, and there's tons of moments like that when Trevor is like listening to the other guy, uh, who says like, "Oh, if I was a British actor, I'd be doing so much better," and
Mhm.
then it cuts to Trevor like looking at him. Like, there's lots of good moments there, and it just makes me with Dustin Daniel Cretton, that's his name, correct? With him kind of helming this
Uh-huh.
project and then helming Spider-Man. This makes me really excited for, well, I mean, directing Spider-Man
Mhm.
directly. And he directed the first episode of the show, correct? Isn't that what popped up at the end?
I don't remember exactly who did, but I know he did one. Like one of
I
the
was pretty
I
sure he
think so.
directed the first episode, and because he posted the behind the scenes, which showed that they did use a miniature for that spaceship in that scene where they were all like running
Oh,
out to
really?
fight the old Wonder Man in the movie.
Yeah.
It was a miniature forced perspective shot, which is really cool. But it just makes me just I fully trust him with Spider-Man right now because he's showing the city in such a
Mhm.
unique way, the apartments, everything. Obviously, it's gonna be a whole different city, but I'm really thinking he's gonna bring it to light in a really interesting way. And so far, these characters are blending in a really interesting way, and I think that's what we'll get with Spider-Man. And I do
They're
think
doing a good job at making LA feel very alive. And not so much alive,
totally.
but, you know, I we have the benefit of being close to LA, being able to see it. I've seen it in person a good handful of times. But
Hmm.
they're doing a good job of just you know, in the little scenes, like when Simon's walking like in episode 2, when he's kinda leaves his apartment, like that looks like an apartment that a struggling actor in LA would have, you know? And the places they go and the people they interact with, it all seems very real. It seems like a very true, very real story.
I will say some of the interiors seemed a little too nice, but like at the same time, I was like, it's fine, it's a show. Like some of the interiors, I was like, okay, this place would probably be a little more run down. And this is totally a different interior than the outside where they filmed.
The
But
exterior of
that
the
was
building.
okay. Right. But that's totally okay. Um, but yeah, I think also another thing really helping this show is these episodes were all like 30 minutes. Like usually by the time 30 minutes hit, the credits were rolling. They said 33 minutes, but most that's a little bit's credits. And this is a show where I don't mind that at all. I think that's another thing that's a problem with
No,
Marvel
I think the
TV
length
is
fits the show
if you
very well
make
so far.
I totally agree. But like if you make every episode 50 minutes to an hour, and you're doing that for every episode. I mean, I don't know what other Marvel streaming shows were like, runtime wise, from what I remember. I know Star Wars kind of sticks in the 40 to 45 area sometimes. And recently I've been watching season 1 of The Mandalorian again. And there are some episodes that are just 30 minutes. You know what I mean? And it's nice because if someone's turning on your show to just watch TV, you can't, like, you shouldn't be pushing runtime just to push runtime. Some shows it works, some shows it doesn't. This is one where it really benefits from being shorter. And I think this also might be why they dropped all the episodes at once. This show seems very bingeable, but I feel like they didn't market it in a good way towards that. And I feel like if you're going to be putting them all out at once, they should have advertised more just because once it comes out, it comes out. Now I think there's not a lot
I
of
see a
time
lot of
post-release to really get people to watch them.
that's exactly what I was about to comment on. The post-release aspect. I've seen obviously we're only 3 episodes in, but I've seen some TikToks and just like stuff on Instagram. I haven't watched it because I don't want to get spoiled. But the stuff I've seen is mentioning like why did Marvel drop their best show in the last 3 years or so all in one day on a random Tuesday? Or why they release all the episodes at once for your best show? And I don't know if part of me is wondering if WonderMan, if it's benefiting so much for being so streamable, Like if let's say they do all this marketing for
Yeah.
WonderMan and it comes out and we get episode 1 and then we go a week and then we get episode 2 and then we go a week and then we go episode 3. I'm curious on how that would really affect the show. Because to me, I think the show is benefiting somewhat from the all at once, um, what's the word I'm looking for? All at once release.
Pacing?
Because another part
Or
that
all at
when you
once
release
release,
your
yeah.
shows week to week, with Marvel, those weeks periods is when you get flooded and flooded with theories and theories and theories. Like look at WandaVision's number one gripe is that fans don't feel like the finale matched the theories they had, We saw it happen with
Yeah.
WandaVision, we saw it happen with Stranger Things. So for a show like WonderMan, which I think is going to take on a very surface level necessarily, or a very self-centered plot and story, I think if you release it week by week, you're gonna naturally have people start to point and draw conclusions and theorize, and maybe they would get these expectations that it's gonna be something bigger than it's really supposed to be, and that might eventually end up hurting the show. So I think a show like WonderMan benefits very strongly from coming out all at one time.
I agree. Like I said, I think it does benefit. I just think it should have been marketing. That should have been the boost.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Like we have no idea. I have no
You
idea
should have
personally what these next
you
episodes are
should
going
have
to be
released
like.
it to your critics sooner, just so the reviews came out sooner, because that's what drew me in. Was that it got? Because I
Yeah,
mean, it got like 90 plus on Rotten Tomatoes from like critics who are usually harsh on Marvel, especially lately.
I think another part, unfortunately, is by the time this released, is I do want to say Marvel was being scared. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I
hmm
don't like it happens with other stuff, but this project is being helmed by the guy who's releasing Spider-Man, right?
hmm
Which to me is amazing. Love the show. I'm probably gonna love the movie, but I just don't know if they had the trust in this show with it being in its style. If it were to get bad reviews and stuff, you know what I mean? If
hmm
that would damage Spider-Man and then potentially within the same year Doomsday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to say that's the only thing. Like I said, I think it is benefiting watch-wise to have it all come out at the same time. But you know how it is with these releases and stuff. Sometimes they just do things like that. Uh, it just depends. I think it maybe would have benefited if it released on a Friday. I feel like people would binge
I
this
agree.
show on a Friday night way better, and then they could just finish
Tuesday's
it
weird.
during the daytime the next 2 days. Um,
One
let's
thing,
see what else.
I think evidence to my Ralph Boner cameo. Episode 1, Simon is working on American Horror Story. American Horror Story, a show Evan Peters infamously got his big break on. Evan Peters, actor
Oh
who
yeah,
plays Ralph Boner. First thing I saw when I saw American Horror Story, I was like, dude,
that's pretty good.
Ralph's showing up.
That's
So
pretty good.
we're 3 episodes in. Where do you think it goes from here, you know?
Well, I think obviously we have. I think in the next episode, episode 4, we're gonna get the moment where Trevor is kind of outed to have been spying on Simon. Classic story, right? Simon's gonna push him
Okay.
away because he was just hanging out with him. He's gonna be like, "Oh, obviously." I mean, realistically, if I were writing this, I would have it be somewhat around them going in for WonderMan right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They could kind of do it either
Mm-hmm.
way. It's either you do the WonderMan stuff first. There was the shots in the trailer of them going to meet the director at his house, assumably. So you probably have that scene. They go and meet the director, and then after, maybe they have a falling out, or on set they have a falling out related to him
Yeah, you
finding out
need
that he was
your
spying on him.
It's
And
gonna
because I
happen. We
mean,
both know it's gonna happen.
exactly. Well, they're gonna move in because they don't have the wire anymore. They're gonna move in on Trevor,
Yeah.
and it's gonna all come down. Like we know that's gonna happen.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think that's kind of where it's going. And like I said, I think maybe we'll get the prison location featured. Maybe he'll be held for a little bit because obviously they had that stuff all designed in She-Hulk. In
Mhm.
She-Hulk, we saw the holding containers they have at that prison. We saw the photo of it in one of these episodes. I will say it was nice. I think this is our first time seeing the higher ups of who's running that stuff. I think we had seen
Yeah,
the guy who's,
I think so
I don't
too.
know his name, unfortunately. He's an amazing actor. He's super funny in that scene at the diner, but he was in Spider-Man No Way Home. He was in Miss Marvel, and now he's in this show.
Mhm.
I think that's all 3 of them that he's been in. But he's kind of been doing these operations and stuff, kind of being the Agent Coulson of it all. Um, and we finally get to see his higher ups, and they're saying like, "Oh, we're not holding enough people in our prisons," which kind of means that a lot of supers are just going to be getting arrested. You mean if they find they have a reason to do so? Which I think I might have to revisit some of those She-Hulk episodes with the prison. Um, maybe see how it worked back then, because I think it's pretty cohesive, to be honest. You know what I mean? To draw that kind of loose connection between
Mhm.
She-Hulk and the show. Or who knows, maybe he'll need a lawyer and She-Hulk will show up. It's not going to happen. I think this
I thought
show's
about
too
that.
grounded for a green person to show up, and I like her character as much as I would like her to show up, but we've been hearing rough terms with Marvel there. Um,
Yeah, I heard that
but yeah,
she's
I think
like
we
not
will
gonna show
definitely
up at
get that
all
prison
ever
set being
again.
reused. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the Hulks in Marvel. They need to get it sorted out. Marvel does with them. I don't think they're doing anything necessarily wrong. Um, but yeah, I just think I'm really looking forward to what we got ahead of us. I think I'm really interested in seeing what the new Wonder Man suit's going to be, because he's definitely going to get one. They're going to do a costume test. They're going to do something. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
like you said in your
Yeah,
expectations video, I think
I
he's going to
think
use his powers in that suit.
I think what's gonna happen is I think he'll get the role, and I think the onset in some sort of aspect, the Department of Damage Control will move in. I don't really know how this show's gonna conclude. I don't see it having a huge sort of big world conclusion or any sort of like reveal or cameo at the end, or even really a season 2. So I'm very interested in kind of what their goal is for the end here.
I would
Which
love
is
a
why
season 2
again,
though.
y-
So far.
I would love a season 2 as well. Which is why again, to tie back to my theory, it makes sense if your reveal is simply him being a mutant, similar to what they did with the Marvels, you know.
Do you think they'll involve any X-Men directly, like how we got the end of the Marvel stuff with Beast? Do you think
With
we'll get
Beast.
anything directly like that to tie in X-Men? Or he gets invited to a school, an acting school that's not really an
That'd be
acting
so
school and
cool. That'd be
has
funny.
tons of mutants.
I don't know. That'd be interesting, but I think that would allow. I think Marvel's trying to step away too much from having your X-Men show up in a show like this, because then you go
Mhm.
back to your issue with your fans of having to watch Wonder Man. But I just don't want Wonder Man to get too uh or should rephrase that. I want it to stay as self-contained as it has been so far, because I think it's what's making it work so
Agreed.
special. Is that a lot of these characters are new characters or returning characters who, aren't like. It's not like Iron Man's coming back, you know? We haven't seen the Department of Homeland guy, we don't even know his name, and, Trevor Slattery, this is very much his first, main kinda character role, he's never really been the main guy on anything. So I think
It's
it's
Pete Clearly. I had to
working
check.
really well
That's his
for the
name.
show. Pete Clearly?
That's what it says.
So far, it's
Or
working pretty
Cleary.
well, how self-contained it's being, so I hope it keeps that for these next couple episodes.
But what I'm worried about with the end credit scene, because we're gonna have one, we know we will.
Mhm. Yeah,
What I'm worried about is it being like the Moon Knight one, and we get this twist, this reveal,
this
and
twist,
then
yeah.
nothing happens with a season 2. But I don't know, like, I see season 2 being decently likely. I mean, I would hope so, because I don't know, this show just it feels like a TV show in a way that most of
Mhm.
the other shows haven't. I think, even WandaVision, as much as I love it, it definitely felt above
Felt
TV. It was another
agreed.
level. It was just being portrayed through the TV format because of its theme and stuff. But I think absolutely WandaVision is it definitely feels the highest scale show to me. And I don't think any other
No,
shows below that are
all those
necessarily
first, like,
bad.
6 Disney Plus originals all felt like movies that were being shown to us in TV shows, you know? So it's
And
nice to
and some
have
parts
one
were good,
where.
some parts were bad.
Yeah, and I understand why, you're coming out of Endgame, launching your $1,000,000 budget TV shows on your $1,000,000 budget streaming service. I understand all that. So it's nice to
Mhm.
have Wonder Man, which does like you said, it feels like I can flip on a TV show and I can watch 3 episodes, and I can be excited for the next 4, but I don't need to necessarily be scanning every scene and wondering what's gonna happen, or
Exactly.
or, like, keeping my name out every time someone's name is mentioned, trying to think, "Oh, is this a person that." No, it's nice to have a story that's more than about connecting universe. It's about these 2 guys, their friendship and their relationship, and navigating the industry of movies together, and it's somewhat of a love letter to the old movie industry, which I enjoy a lot, and I know you are enjoying a lot. So I think it has a lot
Mhm.
of really good things going for it.
Yeah, and there's still a lot of details like that, but just pertaining to the show. When Trevor's on the airplane, she brings up that he was in a show, and then she mentions that she liked the other actor, and he was only in 3 episodes. And then that comes back later. He says he bought the apartment with the money he made from that show.
Mhm.
And then later again, when we're meeting the dude, we find out that he lost his role to him. You know what I mean? And then there's just tons of little details. I don't know in Shang-Chi if we found out that he had been sober for, is it 13 years? I think it's however long
He
ago
says, like,
Iron Man,
14ish, yeah.
uh, however long Iron Man was. I think I would assume that's
Mhm.
what's happening here. Um, but yeah, and I think there's just a lot of stuff in the show where I'm just interested in why I like it so much. I don't know if it's just the movie sugarcoating on top. But there's a lot of stuff in the show that I wouldn't like if it was a Netflix show. And I don't know if that's because the Netflix shows are pushing 40 minutes, if they're dragging out the story. Like him being like, oh, I don't know where I got my powers from. I'm like, oh, we're going to go into that. But I'm actually
Mhm.
interested. Where in some shows I wasn't. Some of the Jessica Jones, the Luke Cage stuff, and his powers. From what we've seen, his powers aren't something
Mhm.
too crazy. Like they feel like they would have been similar to Luke Cage or Jessica Jones with the strength stuff, but obviously we know he's inflammable and things like that. It's just they're not bothering me this time. You know what I
I
mean?
think a
And
part of it
even
is a
after those Netflix
testament
shows.
to just the quality of, like, the story and the writing and the characters, because it's not so much to, like, I don't care about his powers, it's just in those first 3 episodes, his powers genuinely aren't interesting. As not so much interesting, it's not the idea of where's his powers come from, what do they do? It's not so much what I care about, because they're doing such a good job with the little things, like, the conversations they have are great. trying to find a place to shoot their record their thing was more interesting to me than finding out where his powers came from, you know? And it might be because we've had
And I
so
love
much Marvel in the past. Like, I don't know. I have 1,000 people who I've seen backstories or powers of. It's cool to see someone who is so much pretending they don't exist because they're such a detriment to him, not because they're hurting people, but because it's getting in the way of what his passion is. You know, he wants to be an actor. He wants to make movies. That's his calling. So it's cool to see him dealing with his powers
yeah.
in the trying to ignore them way.
It's literally a paper is his villain. Like, instead of worrying about anything, it's a
Mhm.
paper that he has to sign that says he doesn't have any powers. You know what I mean? Um, I had a good note off of what you were talking about, and I can't remember it. What were you just saying? And we'll see if it reminds me.
I talked about the quality of writing is good enough that it's making the traditional
Yep.
superhero things seem so, not like the most important part.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say. I remember. I remember. I was gonna say, like, yeah, I love how that whole episode was just them trying to film that thing, because as I've
Mhm.
experienced with recording videos here, that is exactly what it is like. The knocking over the light, the re-recording, the voice crack, and then re-recording, like, that is entirely what filming this stuff is like. And I thought they captured it in, like, a really genuine way, and I think that's also just the actors being able to play it really well. Um, but
They do a
yeah,
good job in
do
that
you have any
episode
more
and using
notes?
Simon's apartment as like a as like a somewhat a show of trust between him and Trevor. Because at the very, very start of the episode, he can't let Trevor in his apartment because of his powers and all that. So they're going through all these hoops together, and it isn't until the end of the day/episode where, Simon has that kinda I can't remember the guy's name, but he snaps at him and kinda defends Trevor, and they've gone through all this stuff together that he's like, I have somewhere we can film." And he invites him to his house, which, really could have done it at the very start of the day and been over with it, but for obvious reasons
Mhm.
they couldn't. But through all this, Trevor's become his friend after today. I would very much say at the start of episode 2, they were they weren't they were, accomplices, they bumped into each other a couple times, and they worked in the same field, but by the end of episode 2, they are friends, you know? And yeah,
Yeah,
you
Trevor
have that
defends
angle of
him,
they started like
and he
that
defends
because it's
Trevor.
Trevor's job. Exactly, and it was Trevor. Yeah, Trevor was assigned to be there, so he could get out of jail time, but it's very evident in Trevor that, he views Simon as a true friend, especially by the end of episode 3, he's blatantly chooses to, um, throw the wire away, you know?
Totally, and I think episode 2, there's that moment when he sees the destroyed wall, and he turns back towards him. I thought that was just amazing, because, of course,
I
if he
thought that
were
was
to
good
say
too.
something, how would you obviously conclude, if you didn't know about it, that this person has superpowers and destroyed their wall? You know what I mean?
Mhm,
I think he played it just in the best way he could. You know what I mean? It made it really genuine that he would believe that he didn't notice. Um, and then I was gonna say also about that backstory thing. I think a lot of those Netflix shows used the "who did this to me" backstory to make us care about what happened to these characters. Where this show
mhm,
flipped it. This show, through the flashbacks, through just getting to know Simon, I actually care about the character. So now it's not who did that backstory, who did this to him, because again, he's not really heavily negatively affected by this. You know what I mean?
mhm,
In the ways like you're saying, where you'd be accidentally hurting people, doing things like that. Of course, it's an inconvenience. But now I'm just like, how is it going to impact him when he finds out who did that? Which I feel like none of those Netflix shows really bought me into by saying stuff like that. I feel like they were
mhm,
just trying to jump to the benefit of including something like that. Where the show, now I'm like, well, I could see a season 2 getting into who did this to him, and I wouldn't really be bothered, I think, depending on
mhm.
how they play it. You know what I mean? So I think the show just did it the right way. Care about the character first and then the backstory. I was gonna say also, how do you feel about we kind of got stuff out of order for the flashbacks, and then we got Trevor. We kind of found out what happened before episode 1 for Trevor in the first part of the second episode. So, what did you think about that? Do you wish we saw Trevor getting that information to start, or do you think starting with Simon was the smart move?
I think starting with Simon was very much the smart move because I think at the end of the day, I think he is the main character. You know, I think when him and Trevor had that split, I think we're gonna stay with Simon traditionally more about that episode of them coming back together. Yeah, it'll cut towards Simon, or sorry, it'll cut towards Trevor. But I think isn't it Simon's more the focal point because Simon's the one who needs to kind of forgive him. Trevor's the one who already has made the decision to side with Simon and not, stick with the people, the Department of Damage Control. And yeah, he's still lying, he's still covering it up. But I think Simon's the main character. I think sticking with Simon's cool. And I think the way they introduce it with having Trevor kind of being on the phone a lot throughout the first episode with Simon. So you're kind of like, why is he on the phone so often? And then you find out later on in the fact it's because of the Department of Damage Control is contacting him so often to make sure he's doing his mission.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's another great thing about not having a villain is instead of a normal show cutting between villain's perspective and Simon's perspective and just throwing Trevor in the mix with Simon, instead the two perspectives we're getting are Simon and Trevor. Instead of a villain back like flashback, it's Trevor's. You know what I mean? So I think
Hmm.
it just makes it actually feel like this is a not a buddy cop show, but like we're actually getting two different characters with two different perspectives here.
Yes.
Instead of Trevor just being thrown in as a goofy side character, which is fine when he is. You know what I mean? But I think
But his
I,
goofy
I
side
just I just
characters
really
feels
like having his
genuine into who
perspective.
the character is. It doesn't necessarily feel like he's just throwing a joke out there to make a joke. The jokes he makes and the comedy and the way he talks, it very much fits in line with everything you see from the character, you know? These
Yes.
these actors know their characters, you know? Like, Benjamin Kingsley knows how to be Trevor Slattery, you know? He delivers all the same kind of deadpanned, awkward humor the same way, and it makes it feel less like comedic relief and more like a genuine human interaction, you know?
Totally agree. And I just love learning all the little details about how he started acting, all these things that we didn't know. I think it's just a really fun character exploration. And I think if it wasn't
It is.
him, not because he's established in the MCU, that is kind of part of it. I feel like if it wasn't him and they had introduced a new character and had said, this is a great actor, I feel like personally the show wouldn't work. Not only because we wouldn't have that amazing actor that is Benjamin Kingsley, but because we're the only people that are able to grasp the insane concept that he had played a terrorist and then
Mhm.
tried to live a normal, and we never really saw the consequences of that. We saw the Shang-Chi stuff, but we didn't see all this stuff about him becoming sober, about him doing all this stuff, you know what I mean?
It's such
Um,
a unique
and I think it's
character
just really
that we've
insightful.
known for so long and seen such a handful of times, but never really had an actual character study done on them, or never really actually seen them outside of acting in the movie they're acting in. You know, he's playing the Mandarin in the Mandarin. In
Yes.
Shang-Chi, he's very much sort of, and it's not like psychosis, but he's kinda crazy in Shang-Chi, you know, he's not nearly as coherent as he is in, WonderMan. He just seems like he's a little more bumbling and rambling around in Shang-Chi, and I can't remember the exact reasoning for it, but
Yeah,
for whatever reason, maybe he was just coming off with all the Mandarin stuff. But it's nice to have him in Wonder Man, where it's a character you didn't really think could have such like a real backstory, and it makes those little moments of learning about him so rewarding because we've known him for so long. It's like it's not so, and it's interesting because he's not a bad guy, so it's not like you're finding out redeeming qualities about a bad person. It's more of it's just someone you don't know, and then you find out something that you empathize with. Makes you go, "Oh wow, yeah, I can connect with that." Both characters are have
I
that
completely
aspect going
agree.
for them.
Completely agree. Do you have any final notes here? Oh, I was going to throw in my prediction. I hope the Wonder Man song shows up in this so bad. If it doesn't, I will be bummed. But I just want to throw that wasn't in our prediction video, just in case it happens. I'll throw that out there. Do you have anything else?
Those are it on my episode 1 through 3 comments.
There you go. I was gonna play. Well, I was actually looking at Ethan's outros to figure out what he says, and it
Mhm.
says here that he was saying, "You heard it here first, folks. Iron Fist is gonna show up in Wonder Man." This is from our Wonder Man trailer video. So we have to remember that that's Ethan's prediction from way back, or he was quoting me or something. But someone in that video, either me or Ethan, wanted Iron Fist to show up. So we'll see if that happens.
I hope so. That'd be a cool reveal at the end.
Right. Let's see. I think I'm just gonna try to play Ethan's outro because I don't think I'm gonna remember what to say. So I think we're gonna let Ethan do the honors and do the outro. We're gonna see if this works. Hopefully this picks up. Let's see.
But we hope you enjoyed diving back into the timeline with us. New recap episodes are coming out every week leading up to Avengers Doomsday. Wherever you are in the multiverse, thanks for making the Sacred Rewatch part of your journey. For all time, always. See you guys.